In The Female Eunuch, Germaine Greer doesn't just expose the social conditioning of femininity. She rips apart the lie that femininity is somehow inherent or biological. Society has worked diligently to mold women into something smaller, weaker, and more malleable, and it starts from the moment they enter the world. But what Greer makes clear is that this conditioning is not accidental, it's strategic. The goal is control. It's about keeping women in their place, pliant and pleasing, so they don't disrupt the established order of male dominance. From infancy, women are caged in expectations, starting with how they are dressed and treated. Pink for girls, blue for boys, this is more than a harmless tradition. It's the first step in assigning roles that will define the rest of their lives. Little girls are handled with more care, their energy stifled. Where boys are allowed to run free, to explore, to take up space, girls are reined in, quieted, and taught that their value lies in their appearance, in being cute, demure, and polite. This is the beginning of the emotional and intellectual shackles that will be tightened as they grow older. As girls grow into adolescence, Greer argues, the conditioning only intensifies. They are bombarded with messages from every direction: media, school, family, teaching them how to be the ideal woman. This figure, as Greer points out, is not real. She is a construction, a hollow image built to serve male fantasy. Women are told they must be thin, but not too thin, sexual, but not too sexual, smart, but not too smart. The balancing act is impossible, and that's the point. The constant pressure to conform ensures that women remain preoccupied with pleasing others rather than developing themselves. Greer's critique of the ideal woman is damning. This figure, she notes, is not just about beauty or behaviour, it is a weapon of oppression. The ideal woman is quiet, submissive, and self-sacrificing. She exists not for herself, but for the comfort and pleasure of others, particularly men. Her identity is wrapped up in how well she can perform femininity, not how deeply she can think, create, or live. This ideal strips women of their humanity, turning them into objects to be moulded, perfected, and consumed. One of the most devastating effects of this conditioning, Greer argues, is that women internalize it. They come to believe that their worth truly does lie in their ability to meet these impossible standards. Women become complicit in their own oppression, policing their own behaviour, bodies, and desires to align with what society expects of them. This internalized oppression is perhaps the most insidious aspect of the conditioning. It doesn't require men to be actively controlling when women have already taken on the role of their own overseers. This internalization leads to what Greer describes as a diminished sense of self. Women are taught to see themselves not as fully human, but as reflections of what others want them to be. They become disconnected from their own desires, ambitions, and intellects, focusing instead on the superficial markers of success: beauty, slimness, agreeability. In this way, women's potential is stunted before it has a chance to fully develop. Their creativity, intelligence, and power are smothered beneath layers of expectation. What Greer advocates for is nothing short of a rebellion against these imposed roles. She urges women to reject the stereotype of femininity entirely. This means stripping away the layers of conditioning that have taught women to be passive, silent, and small. It requires women to rediscover who they are outside of the roles imposed upon them, to reconnect with their own intellect, creativity, and energy, the very traits that society has worked so hard to suppress. Greer makes it clear that this rebellion is not just about rejecting beauty standards or refusing to conform to traditional roles. It's about reclaiming personhood. To be a person is to be more than a body that fits a prescribed mold. It is to be a mind, a voice, a force in the world. Women, Greer insists, must embrace their full humanity with all the messiness, power, and complexity that comes with it. Only then can they escape the limitations of the feminine stereotype that has held them captive for so long. And this reclamation is not an easy process. It's not as simple as deciding one day to stop caring about what society thinks. The conditioning is deep and pervasive, woven into every aspect of life. But Greer believes that by acknowledging it, by seeing it for what it truly is, a method of control, women can begin to dismantle it piece by piece. they can start to ask the questions that matter. Who am I, if not this ideal woman? What do I want, if not to be pleasing? What can I create if I'm not constantly trying to fit into a role designed to contain me? Greer's call is for a radical reimagining of femininity, one that isn't based on external validation or narrow definitions. Femininity, as society has constructed it, is a prison. True liberation, she argues, lies in breaking free from that prison and refusing to be defined by the limitations that have been imposed on women for centuries. It's about reclaiming agency, reclaiming power, and rejecting the notion that women's lives must be lived in service to anyone but themselves. In Greer's vision, women can finally be free to be their full, autonomous selves, powerful, creative, intellectual beings who refuse to be boxed in by a world that has long tried to keep them small. The stereotype of femininity may be strong, but the potential for liberation is stronger. Women, Greer insists, have always had the power to break free. Now they must choose to use it.